Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, as we gather around, talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all that sorts of good stuff. And joining me here today, even though we're starting about an hour later than we normally do, is the one and the only Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing today, sir?
Dude, I was so stoked after watching this week's episode of The Mandalorian. I just have this warm, just gooey, ghibli feeling in my insides.
And yes, as I pointed out, it was actually almost as good as last week's episode. But we'll talk about that. We will talk about that in a second. Hey, guys, listen, we do have a bunch of things to talk about here today. And here's how today's show is going to go. We spend the first half of the show talking about a bunch of subjects and topics we got lined up. And then in the second half of the show, we'll go over and take your live comments and questions. Now, how do you get a live comment or question on the show? It's really rather simple. Simply go to the link that's in the top of the description of this video. That's streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You can use that there. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show if it's within reason. And of course, you'll be supporting the show at the same time. And now, guys, let's jump into a couple of things here, shall we? We're going to start off with this. You know, Rob, it's Friday. That means a brand new episode of The Mandalorian has indeed launched.
Yeah.
And now, as we normally do on Fridays here, Rob and I are going to talk about Mandalorian. We're not going to go into heavy plot spoilers or anything like that. Ann and I will do a spoiler review a little bit later this afternoon. You guys can probably, I think it's going to be at 4 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. You guys can come back and join us for that. But the episode, this one directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, who, of course, directed one of my favorite episodes from last season, the one on the Marsh world where they helped the local community against the people who had the Imperial Walker, those creatures that had the Imperial Walker. I really liked that episode, and I really, really, really enjoyed this episode. One very cool thing for me was seeing Titus Welliver. Is that how you pronounce his last name? He plays Bosch. And he's also in Sons of Anarchy, and he's just in everything. It was very, very cool seeing him pop up in there as well. And of course, the name of this episode was The Heiress. The Heiress. And as soon as they tell you that the name of this episode is The Heiress, well, you know what that means. Because we've all been expecting it. As soon as they call it The Heiress, you know we're going to get Bo-Katan. And of course, Bo-Katan pops up there, played by Katie Sackhoff from Battlestar Galactica. She's in there too. And we saw, Sasha Banks, who I told people a while ago on Twitter that she's actually not playing Sabine Wren. I told people on Twitter, and a bunch of people called me a liar. But anyway, she's not playing Sabine Wren. So there's that. This was a immediate follow-up, as they've normally done in these episodes, to last week's episode. It picks right up where the last one left off. And Rob, this was a lot of fun. This was a really fun, great, enjoyable episode to watch. I had a blast. They tied in a number of things together already. I thought it was great, just as we expected. We got to meet Frog Lady's husband, which I thought was cool. Anyway, Rob, your thoughts and your impressions of this week's episode of The Mandalorian.
Well, I've decided to start rating Mandalorian episodes not on a scale of how much necessarily I like them, but how much the Hot Toys figures are going to cost me eventually. And this episode gets a rating of 3, because they're going to make Bo-Katan and her compatriots. So that's $750 right there. So that's how much this episode of Mandalorian will cost me. Will be $750. But I love this episode. First of all, I really like the world building. We finally saw a milieu that we've never really seen in a Star Wars movie before. I mean, we saw Camino, which is a water world, but this, I liked seeing sort of a port town, a port city. And I thought that was great. The visual effects, well, I don't know if they still use stagecraft technology, but the visual effects when they were out at sea were amazing. I mean, maybe they did go out to sea and shoot it on the water. I don't know, but man, I loved it. I loved seeing, I love the fact that what this show is giving me is basically my classic Kenner action figure collection. They're moving through all of the different species that we ever saw. You know, like everybody that was on Jabba's sail barge is being represented at some point in this, and that's the kind of fan service that I really like. And I there were things in it. I actually laughed out loud when the Razor Crest fell in the water. Now, you know me, I can't stand the abuse starships take, but I thought it was just funny. You know, and that's not really a spoiler, but it was just, I mean, the poor ship, it just gets beat to hell. But I really just like the representation of the Star Wars universe. Like you said, Titus Welliver. I like the ship designs. We saw some things that we had never seen before. And I just love seeing all the different races. It just felt like Star Wars, and the callbacks to the Clone Wars and Rebels and everything that's going on. I mean, clearly these people, between Filoni and Favreau wrote this episode again. Bryce Dallas Howard directed it. And I had such a good time with this episode.
A couple of neat things. You're talking about the world. Even today still, a lot of times, you know, you mentioned Camino. In Star Wars, it's a running joke. Every planet has one environment. It is either a desert world or an all-water world or an all-ice planet world. It was really neat as they were approaching this world. Oh, look, it's a world with actual multiple environments around it. You can see, but here's the interesting thing, though. This really, if you just look at the bones, this episode is the exact same as last week's episode. We have Mando showing up on a world, tracking down a lead. He meets somebody who may be able to point them towards another important step. But in order to get that person's help and get the direction he needs to get to that next step, they need him to do something for them. So he does something for them, and then it ends with that person now giving him the direction he needs to take and go. That's the exact same outline as last week's episode, but this is why it works for me. Again, I've been saying this for a while. The great thing to me about Mandalorian is that the journey is the story. You know, it reminds me like of the old Kung Fu show. Remember that? Kung Fu?
Yeah, or something like Have Gun Will Travel. Or,
yes.
Something like that.
Yeah, where the journey itself is the adventure. The journey itself is the story. And I thought it was great. There's a lot of very, very cool elements in there. And again, I very impressed with Bryce Dallas Howard, because this was a very... It was a different kind of episode than the one she directed in season 1. So I like that a lot, and a lot of energy, a lot of hype. I enjoyed it a lot.
Oh, I love the lore. You know, there's world building going on. There's lore. We find out about the Mandalorian lore, and we find out more about just the universe itself. And I have to say that I know one of my favorite things about these episodes is seeing the production paintings over the end credits. There was one effect shot in here, and it's from a distance when something explodes and you see, I don't want to ruin it, but it was just a beautiful image and of our characters. And I just, the thought that's put into this show from a Star Wars perspective, while I don't think this show's necessarily perfect, and narratively it does always seem to me to feel slight, but what went on in this episode, I really felt fulfilled as a Star Wars fan watching this. And it was even the portrayal of our character from last week, Frog Lady. I really found it kind of heartwarming, you know.
Yeah, it worked.
When you reunited with her husband, and it's a warm. It's domestic bliss, the Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen of frog people.
Now there's a lot of details we're not going into right now. There's a lot of details we're not going into right now. But no, I agree. It was a fun episode, a good You know what's funny too? A lot of times you'll get these really long movies, like 2.5 hours, and you watch it and you go, man, that didn't feel like 2.5 hours. This was oddly the reverse. This was a 30-minute episode. 30 minutes. It didn't feel like 30 minutes. Like, honestly, by the time it ended, I felt like I had just watched an hour-long episode. It's really weird. Like, it felt like an hour-long episode, but they just packed so much into that 30 minutes.
No, I agree, man. It was chock-a-block full of just deliciousness. I really just enjoyed it, and I really, there's one thing they have, because it's a port city, they've got cranes, and this is just a throwaway thing, but did you notice, like, they have, it's like an Imperial Walker, but it's a crane
attached to a crane. Yeah,
I love that. I'm like, that's so cool. I want a model of that, man.
All right. Question is, guys, did you have a chance to see it yet? This episode of Mandalorian, The Heiress. Did you have a chance to watch it? If so, what did you think? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's do one more thing off the top, and that is this. There's been especially in the last number of years, this really big resurgence of people wanting older franchises. And by older franchises, I mean, 10 years, 20 years old, and wanting them now to have some kind of resurgence. And we've seen that being played out. One of the films that a lot of people have been talking about the last few years about wanting to see another one was the 2005 Keanu Reeves film, Constantine. Well, according to one of the stars of the film, who plays Peter Stormare, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, who played Satan in the first Constantine, he is saying that they are in fact doing another one. On his Instagram account, he posted an image of some website that said, in Constantine, Peter Stormare plays one of the best versions of Satan in history. And then he adds a little comment on the bottom that simply says, sequel in the works. Sequel in the works. And so, of course, that has set off a whole lot of outlets like Screen Rant saying, Keanu Reeves' Constantine 2 is happening, says Star. All right. Couple things we should touch on here before we get into heavy discussions about it. Number one, something being in the works is different, substantively different, than something actually happening. Something being in the works just could mean that somebody's like writing a script or it's being developed. That is a far, far cry. We've seen this happen a lot, Rob. That is a far, far cry from something actually happening. There's a big difference. There's different stages along the way. Number two, it is important to point out that Stormare didn't really give any details. What does that mean? Does it mean a straight to VHS, home thing? Is it something Keanu Reeves would actually be involved in? Would it be kind of a spinoff? All I'm saying is this one line of a guy who played a supporting role in the first film saying, sequel in the works, it could mean a lot of different things. So I don't think people should get too terribly excited just yet. But, Rob, it does introduce the possibility. It introduces the possibility. Look, I'll say the unpopular thing. I've never thought that first Constantine movie was all that good, to be honest with you. I never liked it originally. I know a lot of people started rewriting history once Keanu Reeves got hot again and John Wick happened, and all of a sudden people started looking back at Constantine kind of in a different light. And I love John Wick, and I love, I love everything that Keanu Reeves has done lately, and I'm a big fan of Keanu Reeves. But I'm one of these guys that I just never thought that first Constantine movie was all that good. It didn't do well critically. It didn't do well with the audience. It didn't do well financially. So I get there's a nostalgia factor. But I got to admit, I hear this, Rob, and I go, really? You want to go back and make that? Like, I get it. Keanu Reeves is hot right now, and you want to kind of take advantage of that. I get that. And hence we've got, Bill and Ted 3 got made and different things. But I don't know. I got to admit, this isn't something that excites me, Rob. What are the upsides of this? What do you think about this potential news?
Well, I was a huge fan of the Hellblazer character, and I read all the Hellblazer comics when Vertigo started publishing them. It spun out of the Swamp Thing comics. And at first, when Keanu Reeves was cast as John Constantine, I'm like, I don't know, man. But I have to say that I enjoyed the film, and I liked its take on hell and heaven, and I liked Keanu Reeves' portrayal of Constantine, even though it was different. I liked all the cast, Tilda Swinton, the Jaimin Hansu. I liked it, and it was fun. For me, it was fun. And I think it was the greatest movie in the world? Certainly not. But there was enough in it that I really enjoyed it. And I thought that they would make more. And to me, there's so many different storylines that they could delve into with the Constantine character that I could definitely see him coming back. So I could see that play out. But like you said, do we really need another one? I mean, in a way, all of these reboots and things are nice, but I would rather, I think, see newer franchises, things that haven't been tackled yet, because it doesn't, making another Constantine movie, what is it, 15 years now after the fact or something? They made it 20 years?
2000, 2005, 15 years.
Yeah, so 15 years. And it's like, I mean, that's great, but I would rather see something new that we haven't seen before. Like, if you're going to delve into, like, do a Kid Eternity movie, if you want to do or do a Transmetropolitan movie, make Keanu Reeves play Spider Jerusalem. I don't know. I'd rather see something new than something like a reboot of something that we don't really need. But then again, if it's good.
But here's the question. Is there even any hunger for Constantine? Because remember, they tried doing a Constantine standalone series. It lasted one episode. It lasted one season. Didn't go anywhere. They brought the character back into the CW Arrowverse with varying degree. By the way, I can't remember the actor's name. The actor who plays Constantine in the CW verse, I actually quite like. I got to say, I actually quite like that iteration of Constantine. I do, but it's not like that became the big hot character in the CW universe, right? So I don't even know that there's a hunger for the property, let alone for this. So I don't know. I just found it odd. Well, but you're right, Rob. If somebody's got the right idea and it can be great, just like Felipe the Sentient Dancing Microphone, I suppose, then great. Why not? Yeah, but it just seems weird to me. Question is, guys, what do you think about the sounds of this? Do you think this is do you think this is gold? Do you think this is $600 million at the box office guaranteed? I don't know. Or are you like me and you're kind of scratching your head a little bit and saying, really? One for this, even though it's the great Keanu Reeves? I don't know. What do you guys think about it? Jump into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down and out of the way, let's now get into our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them by going anytime 24/7 when you come across a big story that you think we should talk about here. Going over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's get into main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Stubble McShave, who writes, I read on IndieWire that Nolan had received criticism about his sound design from other filmmakers. They thought it, at times, was too loud and that it was hard to hear some of the dialogue, among other criticisms. Nolan responded to the criticism that he thought they were just conservative and more or less ignored their critique. Do you think it comes across as a bit arrogant for him to just ignore the criticism from both general moviegoers and his peers? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in. And yeah, listen, in the post-mortem of Tenet, a lot of people loved it. Some people thought it was okay. Some people didn't like it. But amongst all three of those groups, there seemed to be some general agreement that there was an issue in the movie with audio. Audio did, for a lot of people, seem to be an issue, whether it was like really unbalanced things where certain things were way super loud, some jarbling in the dialogue. Some people had a hard time understanding and deciphering the dialogue. I think there was one or two scenes where that was intentional, but then there were other scenes when it wasn't, that it was difficult. Anyway, if you're one of the people who felt that way, you're not alone. Even other filmmakers were so bold as to get a hold of Christopher Nolan and let him know about it. This comes to us, and Christopher Nolan was talking to IndieWire, said, we got a lot of complaints, Christopher Nolan said. I actually got calls from other filmmakers who would say, I just saw your film, and the dialogue is inaudible. Some people thought maybe the music's too loud, but the truth was it was kind of the whole enchilada of how we had chosen to mix it. So basically, Christopher Nolan says, yeah, we had a number of filmmakers call me. It wasn't just hearing it from fans. There were filmmakers who got a hold of me and said, dude, there's a problem with your audio. The levels are off in certain places, and it's just too hard in too many places to discern what's being spoken on screen. To which Christopher Nolan replied, I get it, but this is how we chose to sound mix it. This is the experience he wanted to create. The question is, does that make him arrogant? Does it make Christopher Nolan arrogant to say, well, this is just the way we wanted to do it? And I'm going to say something here that I think might surprise some people. I actually really don't think it is. Now, remember, I am one of the guys that I had an issue with the audio in Tenet. I enjoyed Tenet. I liked it. But yes, I thought an audio was one of the significant problems with the movie. You guys heard me talk about that before. I don't need to go all into it again. But as somebody who had a problem with the audio in the movie, I don't think it's arrogant for Christopher Nolan to say that. Listen, we always cry and scream and complain that we need to let the filmmakers make their films, right? Whenever a studio gets involved, no studio interference, let the artist make his art. You know, we're always like that, right? Sometimes maybe too much so, but we are kind of like that. Artists make art that are expressing an inner vision that they have. And if Christopher Nolan, let's face it, this audio issue in Tenet is not new. We have seen this in a couple of his other films as well, some audio issues, right? But we've come to believe that, and I hope he changes it. I do. I hope he changes it moving forward. But if that is his inner vision and how he wants to express it as an artist, then damn it, even if I don't like it, that's how I feel that's the way he should do it. And I say that as a guy that didn't like the audio in Tenet, and I hope he changes it. But at the end of the day, he's the filmmaker. And if he's got a way of how he wants his films to play and how they present, and it's a little different from how we're used to it, maybe it's a little different from how we like it. But if that's how he does it, I don't believe that makes him arrogant. I just believe that makes him an artist who's got a vision and he wants to carry out his vision. And, you know, and so maybe he'll make another film and I'll complain again, Rob. Maybe I'll complain again about his next film and his audio mix and whatever. And would it have been totally fine for him to go, you know, I'm hearing a lot of people talk about this and I'm going to make some adjustments because I want to make sure what I'm trying to say comes across accurately. I wouldn't have had any problem if he said that either. So at the end of the day, no, I don't think him saying, this was my vision. My job is to put my vision on the screen. And that's how I like to do it. Honestly, I don't think that makes him arrogant. Rob, as a filmmaker yourself who has had to go through the process of the editing and the audio and the mixing and figuring all this stuff out, what did you make of Christopher Nolan's comments?
Well, okay, this is not the first time. I remember the controversy in Dark Knight Rises when people couldn't hear Bane and they went back and they actually did mixing. I mean, I think Nolan has this, look, as the viceroy of verisimilitude, the self-appointed viceroy of verisimilitude, as I call myself, or actually somebody hung that on me, so I wasn't self-appointed. I think he's going for a certain effect. He's trying to create a realism. And in the real world, when you're out walking down the street, everything is not always audible. If somebody's walking ahead of you and they're trying to talk to you, but they're not looking over their shoulder, it's very hard to hear what people say. So I think he's trying to go for a certain realism, and he does that. That's why he does not like to use CG. You know, he likes, and I appreciate that about his movies, that there's a realism to them. And when he does use visual effects, it's only in support of that realism. That the plane heist sequence, or when they crash that plane in the beginning of Dark Knight Rises, is incredible. That sequence is incredible because it's real. Or the hallway fight in Inception, when they built the hallway on a gimbal. They do some really amazing stuff. However, that said, if somebody says something in a movie, I really believe that if you have to ask yourself as an audience member, wait, what did they say? It takes you out of the film. So the same way that he's trying to create a realism by not using CG, his grasping at realism in terms of his sound design is, I think, maybe a little misguided. Because if you have dialogue in a film, if you're going to allow a character to speak, even if you have to make sure that the character isn't, if a character wouldn't be as audible in real life, when you go to the movies, you should be able to hear a character's line of dialogue, because if you can't, it takes you out of it. You're like, wait, what? And so to me,
and you fall behind as an audience member. You fall behind in the story.
You fall behind, and also, it also makes your immersion in the film stops, because then you don't know what is said. You turn to your friend or whatever. What did he say? And I think that shatters the very illusion of reality that Christopher Nolan is so good at achieving. I think he's letting himself down with his sound design, and I'm perplexed by it. I've been perplexed by it since Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, I listen, and I don't disagree, but the question becomes, as a filmmaker, if that's the style he likes to create, does it make him arrogant for not wanting to do it the way the rest of us kind of wish he would do it?
Well, I don't know if it makes him arrogant. Well, I wouldn't say arrogant is the word, because I think that he's trying to achieve something. I just think what he's trying to achieve is with his sound design, I think it's misguided. I think, because he's not being arrogant. He actually, well, I mean, all filmmakers have you have to be arrogant in some ways to make a movie, but I don't think he's being arrogant. I think he has a style that he has been refining for a long time. And this is what he's going for, but I think it's misguided. I think that eventually he's going to learn that, he knows what's being said, and I understand. But when the audience, John, whenever you show your movie to somebody, if one person gives you a criticism, you're like, whatever. But if 10 people give you a criticism, then you have to address this, because then it becomes a thing. And I think it's a thing now with him. I think he should address the sound design in his films, especially with one that's as complex as Tenet. I haven't seen it, but I've heard. So
yeah, I mean, the thing that it especially becomes highlighted in a movie like Tenet, because there is so much going on in Tenet, and its narrative moves at such a breakneck pace that if you miss one line, you're falling 5 steps behind the story.
Yeah.
And that was a part of my experience watching the film, is that sometimes because I didn't quite get, again, there are scenes in the movie where the audience isn't supposed to really know what's being said. I got that. But there are times when we were, and when you didn't, you fell behind. And that is something that, I say, as a fan, I hope he changes. But I mean, he's a filmmaker. He's one of the best. And if this is how he's locked into it, he's probably never going to change. So we'll see how it goes. Question is, guys, what do you think about that? Maybe you're one of the people who you saw Tenet, you're like, I don't know what everybody's talking about. I understood everything perfectly clearly. I've heard from some people say that. Maybe you're like us, where you thought, sometimes his audio gets a little way on him. Not in all of his films, but sometimes. What do you think about it? Jump into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2, shall we? And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Christopher Brickner, who writes, yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of the launch of Disney Plus. Hard to believe, man. This is 1 year. Was the 1-year anniversary of the launch of Disney Plus, and Deadline announced that the service now has 73.7 million subscribers, far greater than other new competitors like HBO Max and Peacock. It's like double what HBO's got right now. This is double in just 1 year. What do you think of Disney Plus reaching so many subscribers in a year? What did Disney Plus do right that other services didn't do to reach so many people in such a short time? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in. And yeah, the announcement did come out in an incredible accomplishment. 73 point something million subscribers Disney Plus has in its first year. To put that a little bit into perspective, again, HBO, that's roughly double the amount of subscribers that HBO and HBO Max has combined. And they've been around for a long time. HBO Max is brand new, but HBO has been around for a long time. To put it also in perspective, Netflix, which has been doing it for a very long time, very established in this space, that's more than a third, Rob, in 1 year.
Yeah.
That's more than a third of what Netflix's total subscriber base is. Netflix is still substantially larger, but in just 1 year. They've come within a third. And it is, to a degree, somewhat perplexing, Rob. Really, it's a little bit perplexing because I would make this argument. Out of all the streaming services, the streaming service that has done the worst job of their first year is probably Disney Plus. I'd say they've probably done the worst job in their first year. You know, HBO Max has put out some really great original high quality content this year. Disney Plus put out Mandalorian. Now they're into Mandalorian season 2, and they did put out Hamilton. I think it all comes down to what we all knew when Disney Plus was launching was going to be one of their big, if not their biggest selling feature, particularly in their early years, Rob. It's their catalog. It's the catalog. You open up Disney Plus, and right there in front of you on the menu, you want Marvel, you want Pixar, you want Star Wars, you want whatever. It's just there right away. And I will also say this, and some people may disagree, but you're wrong. I think one of the other big things that has really propelled Disney, which Disney Plus would have been big this year regardless, but one of the factors for its really impressive growth, because we've also seen this with Netflix and what have you, but was the pandemic. The pandemic actually, to a degree, while it hurt Disney in many, 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 many ways, the pandemic killed Disney in a lot of ways. It also had a lot of people staying at home, craving content and craving entertainment. And so you saw Netflix and you saw things like Disney Plus really get a boost with the home streaming entertainment and what you get for the money. Also, the price, Rob. The price. It's half the price of HBO Max, but don't get used to that. That price ain't going to stay the same for too terribly much longer. But still, the price, the catalog, they didn't... Rob, can you imagine for a second? It already got 73 million subscribers in the first year. Where the hell would it be if right now we had, instead of just Mandalorian, we had Mandalorian, we had already had WandaVision, we had already had Falcon and Winter Soldier. If we had already, holy crap, how big could it have been? And then, so it's really, look, any way you cut it, it's impressive. It is really, really impressive. So I don't know, Rob, you see these reports, this type of result. Is it surprising to you? And what do you attribute this success to?
Well, first of all, like I've always said, every household that has kids in America is probably eventually going to get Disney Plus because, what kids would normally have played on DVD or Blu-ray or even back in the day in VHS, they have. They're eventually going to give you the entire Disney catalog. And for kids, it's a relatively safe place. Parents know that we've got Disney Plus. Kids can watch just about anything. And there's so much for kids on there to watch. But, and the same is true for adults. I loved it when I first got it. I was delving back into the old Disney catalog, watching movies like I talked about before, That Darn Cat, stuff that I hadn't seen since I was a kid. And I think it's just a service. John, you can't log into Disney Plus and not have a smile on your face. Because when, like you said, when it all pops up, you're looking at the various things, whether it's Disney or the MCU or even Nat Geo and stuff like that. I'm like, there's so many things here that I will make me happy to watch. It's like the ultimate comfort streaming service. And I think that it's one of those things that people are just going to keep around because it's not what you're getting a brand. With HBO Max, there's all kinds of things on it. Netflix, there's all kinds of things on it. But with Disney, you're really buying into sort of this wholesome family ideal. It's almost a philosophy you're getting with Disney because they have a company philosophy and it's family friendly. And I think that especially during the pandemic time, I would not downplay the idea that Disney Plus is like, it makes your heart smile, John. And I think that was a big part of it. I think people, and of course you've got The Mandalorian, but there isn't that many shows that are bringing people back. And once you've watched 8 episodes of The Mandalorian, there's not a whole lot there. But I think this, as a whole, getting all of Disney, and it's great. And like you said, man, if they had WandaVision and they had Falcon and Winter Soldier, and they had, I mean, the Obi-Wan series, the more they keep adding to this stuff, man, it's going to explode.
It'll depend on if they can keep up the quality level. Like if they can keep up the quality level of, because listen, I'm going to say something a little controversial here, but if right now I had to choose, like an angel appeared before me and said, John, for reasons I can't explain to you right now, you've got to give up either Disney Plus or HBO Max. I'm keeping HBO Max. Like, honestly, right now, I would, right now, if I was forced to choose, I would keep HBO Max. I just think the quality of the content that they have been creating, the quality of original content that they have been making and what we seem to have coming down the pike is really appealing. But if we get WandaVision and we get Falcon and Winter Soldier and it continues to up the quality ceiling that they started with Mandalorian, I could change my mind on that. But it's really interesting to see. Question is, guys, what do you think about these? Are staggering numbers. And you want to hear something even more staggering? Listen to this last part. 73 million subscribers. Success, 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 success. This might shock you, but listen to this. This came to us from TechCrunch, who write, Disney Plus, the streaming service that launched 1 year ago today, grew to 73.7 million paid subscribers as of early October. The release also includes subscriber numbers for Disney's other streaming services. Hulu had 36.6 million, which is great because I think actually Hulu is my favorite streaming service, including 4.1 million subscribers to Hulu Plus Live TV. While ESPN, they probably mean ESPN Plus, while ESPN had 10.3 million subscribers, more than doubling from 3.5 million subscribers a year earlier. I'm sure their exclusive contract with UFC had a lot to do with that. Overall, Disney, but listen to this. This is where it gets surprising for some people. Overall, Disney's direct-to-consumer segment saw revenue grow 41% year over year to $4.9 billion. $4.9 billion in revenue, Rob. But it still lost money. It had an operating deficit of over $500 million. That's the part. See, that's the part that always gets people, like, they always hear about these huge numbers. What everybody, and then what I find, Rob, is everybody just goes, oh, well, it's Disney. So it's free, right? They just put it on their thing. So it's free. It doesn't cost them anything. To run Disney Plus is mind-boggling expensive. To run Netflix is mind-boggling expensive. That's why, how on earth can Netflix be in debt? Because it's really expensive to do what they do. So that's why you're not going to see this $7 a month thing stick around for maybe another year, and then they'll boost it. But I think those numbers will catch a lot of people by surprise. At any rate, guys, question is, what do you think about the whole Disney Plus thing and their numbers where they are? They've exceeded a lot of expectations, guys. How much bigger can it get once they start dropping the Marvel shows? Or are people who already care about the Marvel shows already subscribers? Who knows? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Elton Vengraves. And Elton Vengraves writes, greetings and salutations, John. Something that has been bothering me. Even though no court has found Amber Heard guilty of anything, many people are asking for her to be fired from her role as Mara in the DCEU. But why did no one complain last month when Zack Snyder decided to add scenes in the Snyder Cut with Amber Heard? Why aren't they asking him to remove Heard? It just bothers me. All right, thanks a lot for sending that in. And listen, I got this message from Elton last night, and I thought it was actually something I hadn't even thought about. And so I actually got on Twitter last night. I said, this is an interesting question, because before doing today's show, I wanted to hear some other people's input on this about with all the people. First of all, it is really an interesting situation. Johnny Depp, of course, a court in the UK found that he was guilty of the accusations that were made against him. The court in the UK said that the allegations were, in their words, proven to be, again, in their words, substantively true. Now, so that's a court saying Johnny Depp did these things. Amber Heard wasn't lying. But we do have another court case coming up in the US, and it's going to be really interesting to see what a US court does. even more interesting than that, it's going to be interesting to see how do supporters of Amber Heard and how do supporters of Johnny Depp react to the U.S. court findings. Are people who support Amber Heard still going to really support her if a U.S. court comes out and says Johnny Depp is a victim of libel and Amber Heard lied? Are those supporting Amber Heard going to continue to support her? If the U.S. court comes out and just like the U court case says, actually, no, Johnny Depp is not a victim of libel. He did the things he's accused of doing and Amber Heard didn't lie. Are the people who are supporting Johnny Depp going to continue to support Johnny Depp if that's the case? It's just a lot to still become unpacked here depending on what happens in the U.S. Case. That being said, there has been a lot of people calling for Amber Heard to be removed from the DCU. But it is interesting that in light of the announcement that came out in the Hollywood Reporter last month in late October, that Zack Snyder was bringing in Amber Heard to do additional scenes and additional shooting for the upcoming Snyder Cut on HBO. Now, of course, Heard had not shot any material for a Snyder Cut originally. That wasn't included in the original film. Of course, she had the one scene in the first movie, but no additional stuff that got left on the cutting room floor. But we have seen, Rob, that this HBO Justice League miniseries, I guess we'll be calling it, this is not the original thing that Zack Snyder had in mind years ago. They're adding a lot of stuff. They bring in Jared Leto. They're adding a lot of stuff and doing a lot of new things. After getting this email from Elton yesterday, it did make me go, that is interesting. Why did nobody say a peep when it got announced that Zack Snyder was going to bring in Amber Heard to do more scenes for his project? But there's a lot of complaining and just targeting Aquaman 2. So nobody's petitioning. Nobody's getting mad at Zack Snyder for bringing in Amber Heard. Nobody's getting mad at him for adding more Amber Heard scenes. Nobody's getting mad at him for not replacing her. Because first of all, Rob, we don't even know, at least I don't know for sure, whether that one scene Amber Heard is in Justice League was even Zack Snyder's scene. Because we know Zack Snyder's already said that anything he didn't shoot that was in that first Justice League movie is not going to be a part of the miniseries. He's already said that publicly. And I get it. That makes sense. Because anything he didn't shoot isn't part of his original vision. That makes sense. So I don't even know if that first scene, that one scene in Justice League that had Amber Heard, is even his stuff or not. But he could even if it is, he could easily reshoot that one scene and just replace her. Or if he can't replace her, he doesn't have to add more scenes with Amber Heard. Again, this isn't about Zack, because I don't have any problem with the way Zack is handling this right now. It is an interesting question, though, about why, for the people who seem to fall on one side of this Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard issue, seem to be getting mad at Warner Brothers and petitioning Warner Brothers, but they're not getting mad at Zack Snyder or petitioning Zack Snyder to not include extra stuff with her in Snyder Cut. So I don't know. I had a bunch of people reply on Twitter. Some people proposed that, well, a couple of big theories came out. Theory number one was people don't really mind as much because it's not as big of a role in the Justice League miniseries, right? Clearly, her role in an Aquaman 2 would be significantly bigger than it would be in the Snyder Cut Justice League miniseries, right? So that's one kind of prevailing thought why nobody got upset. The second prevailing thought was probably a lot of people didn't even realize that, because not everybody, Rob, this may surprise you and me, not everybody reads the Hollywood Reporter every day.
Right.
Not everybody follows all the news channels and all that kind of stuff when it comes to movie. So one of the prevailing thoughts was, hey, you know what? It's probably just because they didn't even realize that they were bringing her in to shoot additional material. That's a possibility too. I think that's probably one of the most legitimate ones that I read. That makes a lot of sense. So I don't know, Rob, it is interesting because we've been talking about what happens to Johnny Depp if the U.S. court case comes back and finds the exact same results as the UK court. What does that do to Johnny Depp's career? Because now you have two court cases against you that say the evidence says Johnny Depp is guilty of doing all this terrible stuff and blah, blah, blah. But what if the U.S. court comes back with a completely different interpretation of events, and they say Amber Heard committed libel against Johnny Depp. I don't care about the TMZ shit part of it. The part that's interesting to me is if that happens, what does Warner Brothers and what does Zack Snyder do with all this new, I mean, I'm saying all this new as if there's going to be 20 minutes of new Amber Heard footage, but what does he do with this new footage and these new scenes that he's shooting with Amber Heard? If the U.S. court says Amber Heard is guilty of libel, is there going to be added pressure on Zack Snyder to remove that stuff before this miniseries ever comes out? And if that's even a possibility, why shoot new material with her right now when she's got an upcoming court case that could theoretically find her guilty of libel? And I don't know right now when Aquaman 2 is supposed to start shooting. And listen, I am completely of the belief that until a court says something, ain't none of my business. But if you're Warner Brothers, wouldn't you have to at least be a little hesitant to start shooting something with Amber Heard in either Justice League miniseries or in an Aquaman 2? Don't you have to at least be a little bit hesitant to get started when they've got this upcoming court case that could and probably will be resolved prior to an Aquaman 2 or a Justice League miniseries ever coming out? Because if she's found to be guilty of libel, you can't still have that movie come out. So, Rob, I see a lot of potential moving pieces here. What do you see in the midst of the storm here? How do you see this playing out?
First of all, I mean, unfortunately, we live in a society where this is news. If a couple is in a tempestuous relationship that has gotten physical, men and women have been in these relationships since the dawn of time, I don't think it really matters. I don't think it's our business. I don't think that we should be, who cares? I mean, I know we have to care because we live in this world, but Johnny Depp does not have a history of abusing women. He had women that he has long-term relationships with in the past, like Vanessa Paradis, who stepped forward and sung his praises. I think this is a case of two people that had a very volatile, very tempestuous relationship. And it is it a good thing? No. But I don't understand why it should have to have anything to do with their work. I mean, I know we live in a world where, well, now, I mean, Johnny Depp is a wife beater. But you know what? Is he? Or was he just in a relationship with a woman that just drove him nuts?
No. I'm gonna cut you off right. I'm gonna cut you off right there, Rob. I'm gonna cut you off right there. I don't care if you've never murdered somebody before. If you murder somebody, you're a murderer. If you're a guy, and again, I'm not in the court. If Johnny Depp beat a woman, and again, I'm not in the court. I'm not saying. I'm just saying if that's what we're talking about. If that is the case, he's not just a guy who was in a rough relationship. If you lay hands and beat a woman, I don't care that you didn't do it before. If you come up and punch my mom in the face, I don't care that you didn't do it before.
Right. But
you're done. If Johnny Depp is a wife beater, and I'm not saying he is, I'm just saying, let's see what happens in the courts. But I'm saying if he is, I don't give two squirts of piss that he didn't do it before. If you're a wife beater, I'm sorry, you're done.
But wait a minute, John. Even in our courts, when it comes to murder, there's different degrees of murder.
Yes.
There's manslaughter, there's first-degree murder, there's second-degree murder, and the difference is, let's say you are in a situation, and I'm not excusing by any means bad behavior.
But you're kind of suggesting that if he did beat his wife, it shouldn't affect his career.
Well, the difference though, like premeditated murder, if you plot to kill somebody, that is a very different thing than if you're in a situation, say you're in a road rage event and someone's coming after you and they're coming after you with a crowbar and you straight up kill them. And it wasn't your intent to kill them. You're responding to a situation. And if you were a docile person all of your life and then something like this happens, that's why our court system, there is varying degrees of things like murder and manslaughter.
Oh, sure. And there's self-defense and all that kind of stuff. But
yeah,
what I want to be careful of, Rob, is that saying that, yeah, but even if he did do this, then we shouldn't care. And I disagree with that. Like, I think it all depends on what the circumstances and the situation are. But I'm just saying at the bottom line, I just want to be very careful that we never sound like we're coming close to saying, he beat up his wife. It's fine.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that at all.
But okay, I just want to, because it was sounding. Yeah. I just want to make sure you made that clear. Okay, yes.
No, but what I am saying about these kinds of things is, to me, these situations are. I don't necessarily think. Unfortunately, we have the world that we live in, so it plays out in the court of public opinion. But this is more of an internal matter than anything else. And I think, if you're going to, both Amber Heard and Johnny Depp are at fault here. They clearly were in a relationship that probably wasn't the best for either one of them. Now, depending on what happens in this relationship, if their relationship, and it's now over, and it's not going to continue. And I just wonder, do people need to be punished for the rest of their lives for being in situations that led to bad behavior? Look, Robert Downey Jr. was a total drug addict. He was in jail. He would break into people's homes and sleep in their beds that he didn't even know. And obviously that wasn't violence against another person, but I think that in our society we have to have some kind of forgiveness. Or we have to have some way that people can move forward after people make mistakes. And now, again, depending on how egregious the crime is, I can understand how some people you don't get your life back. You don't always get forgiven. But in this case, I guess we'll have to just wait and see. But to me, it's a weird thing, because now what we're doing is we're persecuting people in other parts of their lives. Like, we're saying what should happen to these people. We're being like, nope, Warner Brothers shouldn't hire this person, or nope, they should hire somebody else. Johnny Depp resigned from Grindelwald
because he was told to. Because he was told to. But he did do it on those terms. And whether he was told to or not, he said, yep, I agree. I'm going to do that. And he stepped aside. And it's not like he fought Warner Brothers, although they did pay off his contract. So he did get paid the same amount of money he would have gotten paid. He wouldn't maybe get residuals, but still. It's not like Warner Brothers said, we're not paying you. He had a contract. He had an ironclad contract and got paid. But I just think it's a difficult situation. And I guess, like you said, we'll have to wait and see what happens in the courts. But I don't think they still did it. They still had this tempestuous relationship. They didn't not do it. And even if the courts say one way or another, clearly Johnny Depp threw phones at her and was volatile, pushed her into walls or whatever, and she screwed around on him, and there was bad behavior all around. And I don't know. I'm conflicted by the whole thing. See, I think that I know when your example is if someone punches your mom in the face or someone's a murderer, but if they don't have a history of it, even when you go to court and you say, look, this person lived a clean, a righteous life up to this one moment of horror, doesn't the rest of their life count for something? It depends on the app, because to anybody who's watching this right now, I have sisters, and to anybody who's watching this right now,
too.
If you found out a guy took a rock and hit your sister in the head with it in anger, guess what? You're going to find a way to end that guy. Right? I mean, that's the thing. And here's the other thing too. It works both ways. If a U.S. court comes out and says, and finds, after looking at all the evidence and all the proof and all the testimony, and says, Amber Heard lied and she committed libel against Johnny Depp in a attempt just to ruin his life because she's mad their marriage didn't work out. If a U.S. court comes out and finds that she tried to destroy a guy's life, she should never work again in this town. Like, listen, I'm all for second chances. I really am. Hollywood loves a comeback story. People love a comeback story. And there are certain times like Robert Downey Jr. I'm glad you brought him up. That was a great example. Like guys like Robert Downey Jr., who, I mean, was stupid as fuck, right? Driving drunk and high in a car. Yeah. With a loaded gun in his car and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I think there's room, and people love a comeback story. But I mean, I'm withholding I'm saying what I would think if this happens in court or if that happens in court. Sure. I simply don't know because I'm waiting to see what happens in the court case. But like, to me, if a second court comes out and says, no, all the proof that we have points to Johnny Depp physically, on multiple occasions, physically assaulting his wife, and there is no evidence here that any of it was libel or what, and it's all proven he's this, I'm sorry, to me, Johnny Depp is done. If it comes out that Amber Heard, in a court of law with months of evidence and proof, and they come out and say, Amber Heard specifically just tried to lie to destroy a man's life, then she should never work in this town again. I mean, it's not that she should never be able to have a job somewhere doing something for employment to live out her life, but she should never be given the spotlight of Hollywood again to do that if that's the case. And it's just going to be really interesting to see what happens when the second case happens.
What you're describing, though, is premeditated, planned behavior that is designed to ruin someone's life. Now that's, to me, that's unforgivable. You know, that's premeditated, like a premeditated murder. It's premeditated character assassination, and you're using your position to do that. And that's the worst kind of offense to me. Straight up, not killing somebody be worse, but to do that, to plan to do that, you're designing, you're setting out to hurt someone. And that's the worst kind of behavior that one person can do to another.
Well, but in the Johnny Depp situation, let's not forget, it's not like they had one fight and one time, according to the accusations. Yeah, I know. One time, it's like over a dozen instances of it. At that point, it's no longer just, I just flew off the handle. So to me, it's just about what does the court find? But again, to me, it is interesting to me, knowing that this court case is coming up, that Zack Snyder would still bring in Amber Heard to shoot these additional things, because if a U.S. court finds against her, there may be a lot of pressure on him to remove her from the movie. So why bother shooting new stuff with her right now, unless they're completely convinced that she's going to win that case? I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. Yeah. But it's an ugly, dirty situation that unfortunately starts to affect the movies and the entertainment that we are going to watch. And that's at the point that we normally will talk about that stuff. Okay, let's move on here. The question is, guys, what do you think about all this? It's a big mess. Why do you think that nobody complained that Amber Heard was being brought in to shoot new stuff with Zack Snyder? What do you think could happen to Aquaman 2 or whatever if a U.S. court finds one way, if it finds it another? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. One last main topic to get to here, guys, before we go into our live questions. And we're going to do this last topic, which comes to us from Tina Almeida. And Tina Almeida writes, "Hi, John and crew. I just saw on Variety that Warner Brothers is considering two options on what to do with Wonder Woman 1984. To delay it to summer of 2021, or to keep the current Christmas date and drop it on HBO Max in January. Which one do you think they should do? What are the pros of each option?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in. And look, the never-ending drama and everything going on with Wonder Woman 84. It's moved release dates several times already. And now it's supposed to be coming out in 5 weeks, Rob. It's supposed to be coming out in 5 weeks. I don't think it's going to come out in 5 weeks, but maybe it will. Here's what's coming to us right now. Variety writes this. 6 weeks before Wonder Woman 1984 is scheduled to open in theaters on Christmas, Warner Brothers are considering whether to push the highly anticipated superhero sequel to summer of 2021, or there might be another option on the table, or keep the movie on its December 25th theatrical debut and then put it on the HBO Max streaming service in early January, according to sources with knowledge of the plans. All right. So what it looks like here right now is that we said for weeks now, Rob, both you and I have said there's no way Wonder Woman's going to open on the 25th. There's no way it's going to open on the 25th, especially now with 156,000 new cases of the pandemic. The pandemic is almost twice as bad as it has ever been at any point during the pandemic.
Yep.
I was watching a report yesterday that says as of right now, there's about 70,000 Americans in hospital right now, today. 70,000 American hospital beds are being taken up with people in COVID. We are approaching 300,000 deaths. That's just Americans. 300,000 dead Americans. We're getting close to that number. We're getting closer and closer to that number. We even have I saw the governor, Rob, of Illinois running down all these numbers and then saying to people who refuse to wear masks out in public, what is it going to take, said the Illinois governor. What's it going to take for you to take this seriously? It's getting bad. And I mean, and once they moved, a few weeks ago, I thought maybe it's possible they could keep it there. But once Free Guy moved, once Death on the Nile moved, once everybody else was vacating, it became kind of clear. And I think with these massive spikes now happening, it's pretty clear. Hopefully we do get this vaccine sooner rather than later. However, Rob, you and I were talking the other day about Cinemark considering a temporary strategy of agreeing with movie studios on a film-by-film basis to have a shortened theatrical window for a period of time, because that gets them some movies to generate revenue to keep them alive until the theaters can come back. And it gives some distributors what they want, the ability to get some theatrical revenue and then get on home streaming as quickly as possible. Under normal circumstances, not something movie theaters would consider. In a pandemic, might not be the worst idea in the world. So this potential option of, okay, you know what? With whatever movie theaters are actually open come December 25th, depending how bad these spikes get, because we're seeing more and more states start to re-shut down everything.
Yeah.
But it actually becomes not the worst idea in the world, because a couple of benefits. Number one, for people who really, really want to see this thing in a theater, they're going to get to see it on December 25th, if they live in an area where there are theaters open. Number two, we just talked, Rob, about how Disney Plus has 73 million subscribers, whereas HBO only has about half of that. Drop in something like Wonder Woman 84 could help. Make the kind of money that it would theatrically? No, but it could be beneficial and it could help. It's not a completely unrealistic option that they could employ a December 25th release in whatever theaters are available, and then say mid-January, put it out on HBO Max. It's a possibility. I don't think that's what they're going to do, though. I completely agree. It's a possibility. There could be some upside to it, but I still think the option they're going to go for is, especially now with whispers of a vaccine coming sooner rather than later, to push this thing to like a midsummer of 2021. It just, instead of these little dinky donk moves where they moved it 6 weeks and then they moved it 8 weeks, then they moved it 5.5 more weeks. Instead of doing that, just saying, screw it. We're going to move this thing 6 months. We're going to do a full 6-month move. We're going to set it in summer, July, August of 2021. We're going to do a full marketing campaign. We're going to make $900 million of it at the box office. And then we'll put it on HBO Max come November or December or something along those lines. So I think both are options, but I think the way they're going to go is the further delay and a 2021 full theatrical release. Rob, what do you think about these two options? Which one do you think, not should they go with, but which one do you think they will go with?
I tend to agree with what you just said, because the problem is these movies were greenlit originally with the expectation. I mean, Wonder Woman made over $800 million. So the expectation is that Wonder Woman 2 is going to bring the studio in at least $800 million worldwide. In this pandemic situation, using Tenet as an example of what they can expect, they're not going to make anywhere near $800 million worldwide in global theatrical business. Now, even if they made $500 million, they're still leaving $300 million on the table by releasing a film during this pandemic. Even if all the theaters were open, they're still only running at half capacity. So I just can't see them releasing a crown jewel movie, a movie that costs $150 million plus during this pandemic, if they have no possibility of making back what they thought they were going to make back when they greenlit the movie. That's just too much money to leave on the ground, on the floor, and the studios can't survive. I mean, the studios have all of this money. I mean, Warner Brothers has Wonder Woman. It has Dune. It already released Tenet. I mean, they're collectively, those three movies together, if they just go to streaming, we're talking close to over $500 million in revenue lost. I don't know if they can survive that. So I think in a way it's sort of academic. They're going to have to hold back Wonder Woman 84 so they can release it theatrically to get their money back. Otherwise, how do you keep losing this much cash?
What would you say, playing devil's advocate for a second? What would you say about maybe an argument that, look, HBO right now is maybe looking at Disney Plus making all these advances and stuff like that. Maybe they see parlaying Wonder Woman 84 as an HBO Max play, that there's some attraction there to something like that. Maybe the benefits for HBO Max would outweigh that. I don't know. How would you respond to that?
What is HBO Max, like $15 a month?
Yeah.
I mean, in order to make it viable, you still have to get 30 to 50 million subscribers.
You'd have to more than double the current subscriber base
to make it worth, and that's HBO Max's money, unless they have some revenue sharing deal. I mean, I know it's all under the Warner Brothers umbrella, but I just don't think, and that's a big risk. That's a big if, and I think they're going to lose too much money. It's like the No Time to Die thing. We found out that they wanted $600 million for a year license in order to make it viable to put it out on streaming. They simply, at a $250 million spend, they need $1 billion or somewhere close. And that's just same with Wonder Woman. They're expecting that kind of money. So unless they can get that, no matter what they do, release it in theaters, then a month later put it on HBO Max, there's still hundreds of millions of dollars that are going to be lost. I think they're going to wait.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, 6 months ago, the notion of put it out in theaters and then a few weeks later put on HBO Max is absolutely ridiculous. Totally. It ain't so ridiculous right now, but I agree with you. It's their best play here, I think, is clearly to delay till mid 2021 and take their chances then. Question is, guys, what do you think they're going to do with that? I mean, certainly there are options on the table. Which option do you think is best for them? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's go on over and start taking your live questions. And how do we get your live questions on here? Once again, just go to the tip link that's in the top of the description of this video. That's streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. If it's within reason, your comment or question will be got on the show. And of course, you'll be supporting the show at the same time. So let's go on over here. And that's not what I'm looking for at all. Give me a second here to get this set up. Sorry, like I said, we had technical issues today. Let me see if I can just get this fixed up here real quick here. La 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 la. Okay. Okay. That's not it. And now I will try fixing it again. And that's not it. And then I will try fixing it again. And that's not it. And now I will do the last thing I have to do and to try. And there we have it. Now we're good to go. Okay. Let's get things started here. We're going to get things started with Anonymous, who just writes, "What? Did we just become best friends?" Totally a Step Brothers line. One of the best. I love that comedy. Still one of my favorite comedies ever. I love Step Brothers. It's easily in my top 10 favorite comedies ever made. I can watch it 4 times a year, every year for the rest of my life. I freaking love that movie. All right. Patreon supporter, Alexander Kent. Thank you for being a Patreon supporter, Alexander, I should say. "Greetings, John. On the topic of Arnold's Netflix, this was something we were talking about yesterday. On the topic of Arnold's Netflix TV show, I like to recommend the movie Maggie. Oh, I actually didn't mind Maggie. It's that zombie movie where his daughter was going to become a zombie. As this movie, in my opinion, is the best acting I've ever seen Arnold do. The father role he plays in the movie is powerful. Have you seen Maggie? Thanks. Yeah, as long as it's the zombie one I'm thinking of. Yes, I actually enjoyed it. I didn't think it lived up to the potential, but I still enjoyed it. Rob, did you ever get a chance to see that Maggie movie?
Yeah, I liked it too. You know, is it the greatest movie in the world? No, but I liked it. Yeah, I liked it.
And you're right. Arnold was good in it. I mean, Arnold, he's been getting better as an actor as he's progressed in age. I can't remember the name of the movie, Rob, but I think Schwarzenegger's first movie after finished being governor was this movie about this super fast car that could go faster than aircraft. And he was the sheriff in this sleepy little town. I'm trying to remember the name of the movie, and Johnny Knoxville was in it with him. If you guys in the live chat remember the name of this movie, Last Stand, yeah. 2013 from Left. I really liked him I really liked Last Stand. Nobody saw it. I mean, it burned.
It was directed by the Korean director who made
That's right. Yes. Yeah. But nobody went to go see it. And it was a total flop, which is too bad because I actually thought it was really good. And by the way, it had Genesis Rodriguez in it. And I love Genesis Rodriguez. Anyway, that's another thing for another time. Okay, let's move on here. Let's see. Russell Amador writes, "Hey, John, currently experiencing an intense level of FOMO with missing out on the PS5 because the resellers got a hold of most of them. Just wanted to pick your brain, but waiting for more stock is the way to go and not succumbing to paying double, correct?" Oh, yeah. The best way to go is to wait. Seriously is. Unless for some reason you have, like there's a practical need that you have to have it for something, like maybe you're a video game reviewer. Well, then you got to cough up the money and get the PS5 if you're going to do that. But if you're anybody else like me, it's like, you know what? I'm just going to sit and wait for a couple of months because I plan on getting a PS5.
Me too.
I'm just going to wait. Just going to wait, and then I'll buy it for its regular price. And because you know how this all goes, Rob, right? Like there's the big rush when the product first comes out, and then all those early first adopters got it, and then the next wave of supply comes in, and there's plenty. And there's plenty on the shelf. So unless you in a real need, I would wait. What are you going to do, Rob? You going to wait or are you going to fork out the extra cash?
No, I'm going to wait because I also want the disc version, that play the 4K.
Right.
Because you get either or, and I definitely want that. And I'll wait. I mean, I'm in no rush.
Yeah, I'll get the discless one because I have no physical media. So there's that. All right. Next up, Willow writes, "What the F is an Anson mount?" This was a story that Aaron told yesterday. What the F is an Anson mount? I'm sure that Aaron and Tom are a great match, but it would have been pretty funny if she had married Anson Mount while Rob is going off about Discovery and the upcoming Strange New Worlds. So what happened yesterday, Rob, you weren't here for the show, but Aaron had told, Ann and I were over at Aaron and Tom's for dinner. And they told this great story when they were living in New York. This is before Aaron and Tom got together. But Anson Mount, who of course is in Star Trek Discovery, and he was Black Bolt or a Thunderbolt in Inhumans. Or it's Black Bolt in Inhumans. And he was in Hell on Wheels. Is that the name of the show he was in? Not Hell on Wheels. Was it Hell on Wheels? Anyway, one of those shows. And apparently Aaron's like best friend in town was trying to set her and Anson Mount up. And so she got on the phone, like, "Anson Mount's over here right now. I want you to come over and meet. Get over here right now. Get over here right now." So Aaron like gets over there, walks in the door, and the first thing she yells in the apartment is, "What the fuck's an Anson Mount?" And meanwhile, Anson Mount hears this. And it's like, so they never dated. I just thought it was a really fun story that Aaron told. Just a really fun story they told. All right. Oh, and people are telling me in the chat that, yes, it was Hell on Wheels. Okay, there you go. All right, next up. And by the way, Tom is perfect for Aaron. Aaron and Tom are a great couple. All right, Barry Condolucci writes, "Got a hold of Noises Off. Bravo. Got to hold the noises off. Thought I'd seen this before for some reason, but I was getting confused with another Michael Caine, Christopher Reeve film called Death Trap. Now you got to catch this one, John. Not a slapstick noise. Not a slapstick noises off. Sardines. Rob, have you ever seen Death Trap? I don't remember. I don't remember that name.
The Christopher Reeve movie. I own it.
Oh, you know, I
can't
can't even think of it, to be honest with you. I can't think of it off the top of my head. What's that one about?
It's really, these two guys are basically playing a game of cat and mouse against one another. And Christopher Reeve is really good in it. It's very much worth seeing. You would like it.
I will have to try that out. Okay, let's see here. Next up, we've got Chris writes, "Hey, John, love your show and I watch it on a regular basis. Thank you so much, Chris. I was recently rewatching Lord of the Rings behind the scenes and I totally forgot that Viggo Mortensen was a last-minute recast for the Lord of the Rings. Isn't that crazy? I can't see anyone else in that role now." Well, we were just talking about that. Weren't we just talking about this like a week ago, Rob? But yeah. It wasn't even last minute. It was after the last minute. They had started shooting some stuff. And Peter Jackson was just like, who was it? Was it Peter Townsend?
Stuart Townsend.
Peter Townsend. That's a totally
Pete
different.
Townsend's in the Who, dude.
Wrong industry.
Here in the field.
Sorry, Stuart Townsend. It was Stuart Townsend. And like Peter Jackson was just like, this ain't working. And they went and got Viggo Mortensen and the rest was history. It's amazing, but you're right. It's really funny. My favorite Hollywood stories continue to be the stories of who almost was in what. And who almost wasn't in something that we know them for. It's totally different. So yeah, that's one of my favorite stories, Chris. All right. Caleb writes, which is the best sci-fi TV slogan / mantra? This is the way from Mando, or so say, oh, that's easy. So say we all from Battlestar Galactica. I got to go with Battlestar Galactica. That Adama speech in the premiere alone makes it worth it. Listen, no, seriously, there's something about, like, This Is the Way is great. I love This Is the Way. I do. But there's something about So Say We All and the way they do it. I mean, and you know, it's funny, Rob, because they have the two slogans have a similar intent, that this is a statement that binds us, right?
Yep.
But there's just something about the way it's used in Battlestar Galactica, the So Say We All. There's something, I don't know, there's something spiritual about it, really, to me. But I don't know. What would you say is the more powerful sci-fi TV show slogan?
Well, I have to go with you on this. I mean, So Say We All, it's such a, see, the thing is, it's unifying. You're unifying an entire crew, an entire civilization. You know, So Say We All, we're raging against the dying of the light. Whereas This Is the Way is more of a personal pronouncement. Like, I know it's the way of the Mandalorian and all that, but or the way of the Ugnaughts, whatever. It's more of a personal mantra. Whereas I see So Say We All as a unifying, like, you know, you would say So Say We All to your army as you charged off into battle together. Whereas This Is the Way you would say as you walked away from your army. You know? Interesting.
They're both great, though. They are both great.
They are both great.
Okay, next up, we got Caleb, who writes, movies we don't talk enough about, part 2. Road to Perdition, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. I really do like that one. Snatch. I'll talk about Snatch all the time. I love that. I love that. It's what makes Guy Ritchie one of my favorite filmmakers. Jarhead, Beasts of No Nation. We talked about Beasts of No Nation the other day. Looper, Unbreakable. Thoughts on these? Die Hard is the best Christmas movie. Die Hard's not a Christmas movie. I like them all. Particularly Snatch. There's Snatch to me is my quintessential Guy Ritchie movie. That to me is everything that is great about a Guy Ritchie movie. Is Snatch. Protection from who? The Germans. Beasts of No Nation, Quvenzhané Wallace. We talked about that the other day, of course. Looper, I think, is really, really great. Ryan Johnson film. Unbreakable is great. Any of these stand out to you, Rob?
No, I mean, they're all, you know, I like them all, sure.
The Tom Hanks Perdition is actually really, some people call Perdition one of maybe the greatest graphic novel adaptation. A lot of people consider it is.
But you know, it's when people say they don't talk about things enough. I don't know. That's only certain people don't talk about things enough. Like, I remember on Collider Heroes, John Schnepp and I would always talk about Road to Perdition being, History of Violence, Ghost World, Road to Perdition were all graphic novels first. Blue is the Warmest Color, graphic novel first. And they just don't get talked about because they're not superhero based. But, I think that he's right there. But I always think about the history. Like growing up, one of my favorite movies of all time is All That Jazz. Nobody ever talks about All That Jazz anymore. It's David Fincher's favorite movie, but it's so time leaves behind, I think, a lot of movies.
With the immortal Roy Schneider in All That Jazz. All right. Next up, well said. Next up, Mohammed Osman writes, "Hey, John, have you read the recent comments from Chris Columbus to Insider regarding movie remakes?" No, I have not. What metrics do you think should be used in deciding whether to remake a film or not? Pop cultural references, box office, passage of time, etc. Thanks. Well, listen, I have had the same criteria, because Rob, you've heard me say this a lot. I've had the same criteria since back in my movie blog days. I remember I wrote an article way back in my movie blog days, probably like 2015. I wrote this article about what should be the criteria of making a remake. And it's three things. Number one, could the story benefit from modern technology? And by modern technology, I don't just mean CGI. I just mean, can even the filmmaking techniques and the way we make movies today and what are the trends in movies today, could that story be transported well to take advantage of modern technology and the modern way films are made? So that's one. So let's use, for example, Rob, The Last Starfighter. Let's use The Last Starfighter as an example. I've said forever they need to either do a sequel or reboot The Last Starfighter. So criteria number one, absolutely. Absolutely. The Last Starfighter follows under that. So that's criteria number one. Criteria number two for me, although it's not a deal breaker, has a significant portion of the movie-going audience today not seen the original? I think that's the thing. I think a very significant portion of today's movie-going audience has not seen The Last Starfighter. I mean, everybody, 90% of the people out there have seen Star Wars, so maybe Star Wars isn't ripe for a remake quite yet. But to me, that's another criteria. Is there a good, significant portion of the modern movie-going audience that has not seen it? Because why complain about, why make another Sense and Sensibility? Well, it's going to ruin the original. Well, nobody's seen the original, so it's okay. That's why, like Infernal Affairs, the vast majority of people had never seen Infernal Affairs. So why not do the Departed? Why not do The Departed? Right? Most people haven't seen it. And it's not like they're going to go see it. So why not? So that's two. Number one, can it take advantage of modern technology? Number two, has a good significant part of the modern audience not seen the original? Number three is, does the spirit of the story translate well into a modern context? Again, Last Starfighter, I would contend that The Last Starfighter would be more relevant today than when it came out. So is it something that the spirit of that story would play well in a modern context? So that's why, to me, A Last Starfighter is a prime example. I don't care about the box office of previous iterations. I don't care about Oscars of previous iterations. None of that matters to me about a remake. It's simply, can the spirit of the story translate well today? Will modern technology benefit the story? And is there a significant portion of the moviegoing audience that hasn't seen the original? If a movie meets all three of those criteria, I think it's ripe for a remake. Rob, what would you say are the important criteria that you would consider in having a remake done?
I think everything that you cited was good, but I would also add that someone has to have a fresh take on the material, because usually when movies are made, they're a product of their time. And I think about three of my favorite remakes, Philip Kaufman's Invasion of the Body Snatchers, John Carpenter's The Thing, and David Cronenberg's The Fly. And especially in The Fly and The Thing, they both are very different interpretations. Like The Thing went back to the original story, who goes there, and The Fly, even though the mechanism is the same, the story was much, much different. And the core ideas are there, but the stories they're telling are, they don't harm the originals in any way, but they take the concepts in really interesting directions that are updated for the time. And that's what I think is great. And I'll tell you something else. Look at A Star Is Born. That movie had been remade a number of times, and I really thought that the take that we got was really, really good. and really affecting. It was different. I mean, the core idea was the same, but the way it was approached, modern, it was of today, and it felt fresh. And I've seen the other versions of that story, and that to me is a perfect example of what a modern remake should be like. Is A Star Is Born.
All right, let's move on. Take another one here. This one comes to us from Evan Ryan, who writes, "Hey, John, with the Boba Fett series about to start shooting, according to reports, it made me wonder what happened to the Cassian Andor series." Well, I think the same thing happened to the Cassian Andor series that happened to everything else in Hollywood. A pandemic hit and plans got delayed. And I mean, we heard, Rob, I think wasn't it like 2 or 3 months ago that we talked, there was some story about the next iteration of progression on Cassian Andor. They're still doing it. They're still going to do Cassian Andor, but I think it just fell out of way. Do you know anything else about that?
No, just what you know. And I think, like you said, the pandemic has pushed everything forward. What I do like about this, though, is a lot of the time these writers' rooms have been working. So I'm hoping that extra added time developing the stories mean that we're going to get a better series than we would have before the pandemic.
All right. Next up, an anonymous viewer writes, "Something I've been wondering about the boys. Maeve's superpower is her strength." That's one of her superpowers, yes. Is her strength. However, in the finale, it seemed like her strikes were having the same impact as Kimiko's and even Starlight's. Shouldn't her punches be causing more damage? Well, I mean, look, there's two things to consider. Rob, tell me what you think about this. There are two things to consider. Number one, quite often in the pages of a comic book and in comic book lore on screen, they never quite, when you got multiple characters involved, they don't always actually portion out the power levels quite right when fights are going on, right? That's always the case. That is always the case. The specific case about boys, don't forget, super strength is also one of Kimiko's and Starlight's powers. So remember, we see Starlight like curling cars, right? Like super strength is also one of her things. Is she supposed to be as strong as Maeve? Probably not. Kimiko is also, she's demonstrated she has super strength as well. Is she supposed to be as purely physically strong as Maeve? No, probably not. But once you get into a fight, it's just all going to kind of balance out. But Rob, how would you address that? What would you say?
Well, I think you're right. Look, a lot of the time, we don't know when you're dealing with super powered characters. Like when they're putting the beat down on Stormfront, we don't know. They really didn't define Stormfront's powers. Like, what is she like? Like if you're hit by a fist or you're hit by some kind of power, we don't know what Stormfront's internal structure is and how her body accepts those blows. So if you're getting punches from 3 different characters, the punches all kind of look the same, but we don't understand how Stormfront's body was processing those kinetic blows. So They all look like she all looks like she's getting punched, but Maeve's blows might be doing far more damage to Stormfront than, say, Starlight's. We just aren't seeing it that way because they're giving her the beat down, all 3 of them. I think it would have been interesting to see them attack her one-on-one and see how that works out, because then you can show the power of the blows on her face or on her body. But since when they triple teamed her, who knows what's going on there?
I love that fight, by the way. I love that fight. I love that whole scene. All right, Drew writes, Tour of Two, which I did not see the first one, Drew. Drew writes, "I did a Netflix double feature of Trial of the Chicago 7, still my favorite film of the year so far, and Perks of Being a Wallflower." Talk about films that really don't get talked about.
Wow.
Perks of Being a Wallflower. I really like
that movie, by the way.
Such a good movie. I thought both were fantastic. Chicago 7's ending was just wow and very moving. Wallflower was darker than expected. I completely agree. But also had a lot of heart. Here's the interesting thing about the ending of Trial of the Chicago 7. And I made an entire video about this. There were a lot of people that criticized the ending, like even people who loved Trial of the Chicago 7. There were a lot of people who criticized the ending. And one of the reasons that people criticize it was because the ending of the film is not what happened in real life. The ending of the film is not what happened in real life. So at the ending of the real trial, Newt Salamander, Eddie Redmayne. Eddie Redmayne's character did not get up to read off the names of all the fallen soldiers. Now, that did happen earlier in the trial, but it wasn't Eddie Redmayne's character who did it. It was another one of the characters who did it, but he only got through a couple of names before the judge shut it down. So for them to portray that at the end of the trial, during the sentences, he gets up and reads this, and there's this boisterous celebration, and the judge loses all control of the thing. That's actually not what happened. But I made an entire standalone video, Rob, about why I thought the ending of the trial of Chicago 7 was perfect. Because again, it's Sorkin telling a story, right? And his job is to make the thing. And to me, it was about ending the movie on that note was necessary, because to Aaron Sorkin, the point of the movie was not about the drama. It wasn't about this guy or this guy or this guy. The point of the movie, at least it seems to me from Aaron Sorkin's point of view, was all these American soldiers who were dying. Some of them completely against their will, who didn't even want to go into that war, and they were dying by the thousands.
Yeah.
And to Aaron Sorkin, that was the point. And so what Aaron Sorkin very skillfully did, in my opinion, by ending the movie that way, he brought it back and he put the spotlight again where it was supposed to be for him. And he reemphasized again, this is why I'm telling this story. You know what I mean? And so that's why I love the end of it and why it's like my favorite movie of the year so far. Rob, when you're thinking about Trial of the Chicago 7 or Perks of Being a Wallflower, which one stands out to you the most?
Well, they're both very different movies. And, I like you, I really loved the Trial of the Chicago 7. I thought it was great. But yeah, I think you make a really good point. It's when people are telling true stories or they're making movies based on, like I'll use JFK as an example. The Oliver Stone's JFK. It's a movie I really like. Is it true? Probably not, but it's based on Jim Garrison's he was the only person to bring a criminal trial in the JFK assassination. But what that movie really is about, it's an American myth about sort of the destruction of what America means. Kennedy's assassination arguably was a time when America lost its innocence. A man, despite his shortcomings, and I know you can be cynical about it, but he was a man, a young president that was trying to bring this Camelot ideal to the White House. He got assassinated for it, and then Oliver Stone delves into this, all the conspiracy theories and the craziness. But what's important is sort of the death of the American innocence, which is what JFK is really about. And I think the Trial of the Chicago 7, while it is very accurate in some ways, when Sorkin goes off book, he's making a larger point about our country and where it was at and what it means and what it also means today, and he's giving us a meta commentary. I never expect movies to be exactly complete slavish recreations to something. They usually, and when you're dealing with Sorkin, he has a larger motivation, like The Social Network that he also wrote. Is it did what happened with the rise of Facebook, is it perfect? Is it exactly accurate like it happened in the movie? No. But the movie itself is making a statement about ambition and genius and changing the world and all of those things. And when you watch a movie, that's what you want. You want it to be more mythologized, I think, than anything else. But in terms of Perks of Being a Wallflower is kind of the same thing. I think it's based on a book, right?
Yes.
Now, I haven't read the book, but I think that movie really hits home with me because more than anything, it's about somebody who's kind of lost themselves, and in finding this group of friends, misfits or outcasts or people that are on the fringes of their school society, that character finds themselves, and they both resonate. They're totally different movies, but they both resonate. And I think they're both very successful.
All right, guys, listen, normally we take this show a little bit longer, but today, unfortunately, for those of you who are watching after the fact, we actually started today's show an hour late because we had some technical issues that we had to address. And so we started late, which means we are further into the day right now than we normally are. So we have to cut today's show a little bit short. There are still a bunch of questions that we did not get to that you guys have sent in. So I will be doing a companion video this weekend to make sure we get caught up so you guys don't have to wait till Monday for us to get caught up on those questions. I will do one this weekend and get those up. Thank you to everybody who sent in those questions, by the way. I also want to thank the wonderful Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett for being here. Robert, thank you for being here, sir. And in the meantime, where can people follow you and your adventures online?
Well, you can follow me on my YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, where I'll be doing my own show in an hour and a half. And then find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett, or find me on Twitter at Burnett RM.
And guys, of course, thank you again for making this show a part of your day. And a special thank you to all you guys who sent in the live questions, because not only did you give us great fun things to talk about, you also supported this show while you did it. All right, guys, that'll do it for us for now. Please remember, especially now with everything going on, do the four main things. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. That'll do it for us, guys. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.